Hi, it's Robert from Acuity Brands Lighting, and I'm here today to talk about the nLight Animate Controller. I have one here on my desk. It's plugged in power over Ethernet to a pathway via, so it doesn't need this power connector here. But plugged into this nLight port is I have a troffer here, and it's got a white lens on its front. I just put a theatrical blue gel over it so that my studio lights don't blow it out, so when I turn it on you can see what's going on. I also have a marked linear fixture here which has 4 cells of RGBW that is going to represent a lighting rig on my DMX ports. So now that I have an nLight embedded fixture plugged into the nLight ports and a DMX fixture plugged into the DMX ports, without opening any software I can press this test button and we start running and seeing colors on the DMX lights. I don't know where they're patched. It doesn't really matter, but they're running colors. I can see that all the cells are working. I have electricity to them. And the 16 wall pods on the local bus are actually ramping up and down, odds and evens, so that I don't plunge the place into darkness. But I can see I have connectivity to my nLight bus. So turn off the test switch. Now, I can control this with any nLight device like an NCM or NTS, but I have an nPod MA here. This one is a 2P, so I will plug that into the other side of my nLight port, and the nLight port is supplying 40 milliamps of power. And after it's done the negotiation, I can just press the on button here and we get intensity on channel 1. This is nothing new. What will be exciting is when we actually use the second switch to do something dynamic on our mark fixture. So to do that, I'm going to launch the Passcape Create software, and looking at the network, I have already gone through and associated this controller with this project file. There's a whole series of videos about the startup process where you add a background image, you set your units of measurement, you set your geolocation for astronomical time events and time clock, connect it to the cloud if necessary. So have a look at those videos. This is a very quick overview of what we're going to do. So as I said, on the DMX, we have DMX port A and DMX port B. I only have lights plugged into DMX port A. So let's have a look to see what's on there. To do that, we hit our binoculars and we will start an RDM, Remote Device Management Discovery on the DMX bus. So I will hit the Discover button. It goes out and it finds 4 different lights. Now they're all addressed at DMX1 because this is right out of the factory. That's not a surprise. First off, it wants to know about the library, and it says this guy has a footprint of 4 DMX slots. I know it's an 8-bit RGBW, so I will choose that. And then it says, well, there's clashing addresses. They're all on DMX1. How about I give 1 to 5, so the first light will be a DMX1, red, green, blue, white. The next one, the next available slot is 5, 9, 13. So I will let it do that work for me, and I hit finish, and it's dropped them all down into my DMX patch grid. Now, I still don't know who is who, so I will press this highlight button here, and I can just touch on any one of them, and I'm like, oh, that's this guy over on this side, and I could just drag him up and put him right onto my canvas here. Then I will touch this one. Oh, lo and behold, it's this guy here. So I will put him a little bit to the left of that one. And let's grab the next guy. And that's this one here. So I will drop that up here. And this one is the first guy here. So I will drop that up there. At this point, I know who is who, where they live in location. I can turn off this identify. And then I could use some tools to tidy up my canvas. So I will align these to the top. I'll change their height to 0.3 of a foot and their width to 2 feet. Now that is starting to look more like my linear fixture. So if I want to see this simulate, I will press this button and I will get live DMX going to the system. And at this point, I can ask to put in a look, a static look, a dynamic look, or a timeline look. Let's just drop a dynamic look in here. And then there is pre-canned effects that start playing right away, but I have a huge selection of different effects, and we'll go through a lot of these, but I'm just going to give it a tracing rainbow. So I have rainbow going back and forth, and I could change some of the parameters, like the loop time. I'll speed it up from 10 seconds down to 5 seconds, and I can change its direction from forward to backwards. And I'm pretty happy with this, so I will say OK on that. And now to trigger this, I will say that it should be following nLight WallPod channel 2 on output 2. Now when I go to my nPod MA and I turn on WallPod channel 2, that will fade in 2 seconds my dynamic rainbow that is going backwards with a loop time of 5 seconds. And then I could turn that out. So now, what if I wanted to control the nLight embedded fixture as well on that dynamic rainbow? Now, it's not an RGB light, but it could just bring its intensity up and down. So to do that, I'm going to go into Add a Fixture, and I'm going to add an nLight embedded troffer, and we'll put that right here. So that's now going to represent my nLight embedded fixture. And I don't patch that into DMX. I will now patch that to a nLight WallPod channel. And I know that it's in WallPod channel 1. So now, when I upload the project, nLight WallPod channel 1, as it did before, will bring up my troffer. But when I add the dynamic effect, which does the rainbow, and it's going up and down participating in this rainbow. And then I can press that off and it will fade everybody out. Now, one other thing I want to show you on this hardware is the rotary encoder. So what I can do now is I can go into Control and I can tag my looks, and I have this dynamic look here, and I can say on the rotary encoder, whenever it goes to program 1, we should also run that look. So now I will upload the project one more time. And now I could use the nPod MA, a time event on the nLight Eclipse. I could use the NTS. Or if it's just a very simple thing that has to run all the time, I can just set this rotary encoder to P1 and it will actually start running this rainbow effect back and forth. So that's a very quick overview of the nLight Animate Controller, its hardware, its ports, and its functionality. Until next time, I'm Rob from Acuity Brands Lighting.